Hi, the following presentation about the Service Unit Terminological Services, or SU-TermServ, given by the project's principal investigator Josef Ingenerf, was recorded during our 2024 workshop about the current state of the project. We have slightly edited the presentation. The full recording is also available on YouTube, and a link to the recording should be on screen now. If you have any questions about the SU-TermServ, please refer to our website, mri-termserv.de, or reach out to us via email at team@mail.mri-termserv.de or the MII Zulip chat. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the workshop, Central Terminology Server for Medical Informatics Initiative and the Network of University Medicine. So let's start with the module 2B project, SU-TermServ, Service Unit Terminological Services. This little project started almost 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. And we are partners from Cologne and Hanover and Lübeck, you see here on this slide. And you can also get much more information on the website that is mentioned on this slide. There are a lot of activities we will not go into details in this workshop, but let's say a few words about this project. This project is about the provision of terminological content of vocabularies and services, especially by using the central Onto server in Cologne. That's the job of our partner in Cologne. And the content of this Onto server is something that we call source of truth that can all partners fix on to do their job, for example, especially in data integration centers that are dependent on an access either online or offline. I will go on this topic also a little bit later. But we have some other partners like the FDPG project that is dependent on the content, on the vocabularies for generating the search ontology to do the feasibility queries on the well-known platform for researchers. So many partners are there that we work with together. Okay, and what else is important? We have some collaboration activities, especially the task force terminological services as part of the working group interoperability in the Medical Informatics Initiative. We meet regularly with other partners discussing what's important for them, what issues are important to deal with. But we have also meetings with other Module 2B projects regularly every 2 months, let's say, to have a better picture how we can fit in the infrastructure that is built for getting the idea of data integration centers and making available all the patient data of making that possible. And our project is only one, from our point of view, important part of that picture. And there are other relationships to BfArM. The BfArM is, as you, I think, know, responsible for the most important vocabularies, especially ICD-10, German modification, and OPS, the procedure classification, and others. Also responsible for distributing SNOMED, and we work together with them, especially because at the moment it's very interesting or very important because they are going to provide a national terminology server, and we have other relationships to other HL7 working groups and so on. And there are other activities, I put them under others, like the Terminology Server Challenge last year to broaden our view to alternatives to onto server, there are of course other ways of doing our job, and we dealt with that topic on this challenge. Okay, we had this kind of talks 2-3 years ago already, so I will not repeat everything, but I like this view on data models like you see here on the right. It's from the core data model of the Medical Informatics Initiative. I can also take other profiles from other activities you see here, Gecko, medical information objects, and so on. But we will deal with, of course, the core data set of the Medical Informatics Initiative, but the job is the same. And this example is from the Basis Modul Labor. It's a lab test specification. And as always, on Simplifier, those FHIR packages are provided. That is our starting point. And in this FHIR packages, there are a lot of profiles like this one with bindings to lots of value sets. That's the way FHIR profiles are built. And these value sets have codes in it that again are from code systems. And value sets and code systems, I go into detail later, but why it's important, because you need those value sets and those codes for structured data entry, for mapping from proprietary data, for example, laboratory data to LOINC and so on, for validation of codes in your ETL processes, for federated data queries I mentioned already in the FDBG portal, for analysis of integrated data. And you always are very, very dependent on the terminological resources. And for that, you need terminological IT services to deal with this binded value sets. That's the starting point for our job. So looking a little bit deeper into the FHIR terminology module, you have this, not all, but this most important resources like code system, where all the terminologies, classifications, ICD-10, SNOMED, LOINC, ATC, and so on, hundreds, are provided as FHIR resources, code system in this way, like this example from BfArM, the ICD-10 German modification. It's a JSON file that conforms to the specification of FHIR code systems. And then you have the value sets where the codes are selected. And value sets are provided either explicitly by enumerating all codes into the value set, or it's defined implicitly by filters, and this includes statements to say, okay, I want all values from, let's say, SNOMED that are childs from the SNOMED codes. And later on, those value sets have to be expanded. So somebody has to provide expanded value sets when they are provided, and they are often provided implicitly. And at the end, those value sets are also sources from concept maps, and concept maps are also provided as a third FHIR resource that's important, especially in local environments, in data integration centers that have to do the job of translating based on concept maps. So that are the main resources. And on the other side, we need services that is also defined in this FHIR terminology module. And a few of them are shown on this slide just to have a short insight. The lookup service to look up codes from code systems, the subsumes operation to test if two SNOMED codes are subsumed by each other, the translate, a very important translate service dealing with concept maps, and also very important, the validate service to validate if those used codes are really in the right version of the right code system. So having said something about this fire sources and services, I finally will come to the architecture or the picture of the Onto server that is used in our project and that is maintained by our colleagues in Cologne, and that is the Onto server. The Onto server you see here with his databases and indexes to do a very efficient job. And this Onto server is provided by 3 APIs, application programming interfaces, the Fire API, the administration API, and the syndication API. And in order to access the APIs, there is a further level of access control. And on top of it, a lot of tools are provided by CSIRO. That's a company in Australia that provides Onto server. So that is a basic outline of what Onto server is structurally is about. And now I want to go through the agenda from today to say, okay, the first session now I'm speaking about is yes, about the basics, about this outline and this fire resources and operations. I told you a little bit. And what will happen in the next sessions? In the next session, we will have a talk from Adnan. And in this session 2, he will go into more detail, speaking about the internal aspects of Onto server, about administration, about implementation, setting up Onto server, but also, of course, about syndication. Syndication is a special mechanism to enable other local terminology servers, let's say in data integration centers at other sites, and having a syndication protocol, a syndication mechanism to be synchron, to guarantee synchron content from the content in the Onto server, to be as the site likes. It can be parameterized, it can be fitted to the needs of each site to have a synchron content. When something is uploaded here, it can be replicated on each site. Okay. Adnan will tell us about the possibilities of Onto server, but in the third session, we will speak about first onboarding discussions we have with partners who are interested to use local Onto server implementations at their site, and to use this syndication mechanism in the way I told you before. So this is what I call the online access to needed terminologies each site by using the APIs from Onto server. But as we know from history, there are some others who will not do it for some reason, because also it costs a little bit money to install the local Onto server variant. It might be a good idea to have the content and made it available by additive tooling to take the same way of providing patient data, and in this way do it analog for providing terminological content to each site. So that's very interesting what's going on at the moment. But both this offline and this online access to terminological content is dependent on this talk of Joshua about another very heavy tooling called Babelfish tool, or whatever, he will talk about it later, for preparation content. And this aspect is so important that I want to speak about it only shortly. This preparation topic has to do that we gained experience after years of uploading versions of resources to onto server. And yes, it becomes clear that there is an urgent need for quality improvement. If you do it years for years and you have thousands of resources without any constraints, you get into messy resources. And so the need has to do with these topics, that we become aware that these core data sets, and there are a lot of them, basic, what they call in Germany, Basismodule and Erweiterungsmodule, lots of them. And what we become aware is that there are lots of value sets and code systems in FHIR package that are missing. Yes, people specify a lot of data models and say, okay, there's a binding to value set XYZ, by XYZ are not existing. So what to do? So we have to discuss with them how to make available also those value sets and code systems that are needed. And if we come to that topic, the original sources, even the original sources of medical vocabularies XYZ are not available as a FHIR coding system. So the vocabularies are available, but not in that format that we need. And if you have more and more modules, we identify apparently similar value sets in different core data models. So it's becoming more and more complex. But not only the value sets and code systems as such, but also the content going into detail, the harmonized use of metadata, let's say properties that are used to describe the content, as the very different ways of vocabularies are described just with these properties, and you can do it in several ways, and you have to decide how to use metadata to describe all those resources, and you have to do it in a harmonized way. And they have to conform to the naming conventions that we defined last year. And you have to guarantee that those naming conventions for metadata are fulfilled and are correct. And even not only the metadata, the data itself, the terminological data itself has to be improved. Let's say, for example, the displays that are provided to describe the codes that are not always available in a proper way. So that has to be improved. And also very important, the implicitly defined value set have to be expanded. All the SNOMED codes that are defined implicitly have to be expanded to provide it in an expand way to the local sites that have to work with those value sets and are not dependent on getting any API to do expanding at a local site. So all that jobs have to be done, and I think especially Joshua will to come to those issues later on. So that's all for now.